But yeah, going back to, I'm going to start venturing into hearing protection and, why these are so applicable to that. Before I do, though, this is like one last feature that's kind of interesting about, our monitors and what you can do to them. It's an ambient feature. So a lot of people, whether it's a musician on stage or a guy who just wears these as actual headphones to listen to music, or you name it. It doesn't really matter what the application is. Sometimes people have these in and it cuts too much sound and you can't really hear enough. So we have this feature and developed this feature called the ambient feature. It's essentially just a hole that's drilled through the bottom of the monitor. I don't know if you can see on my screen. Um, but basically, there's a hole that goes through and it lets in about 10 to 12 decibels of sound. So when you have the monitors in, you are reducing the sound by 26 decibels. But if you have the ambient plug removed, so if you remove this plug, then it's going to let in about 10 decibels. So kind of cool. You definitely it varies by application and who actually would be someone that would benefit from this versus someone who, like a drummer like myself. I don't have the ambient feature because I want as much protection as I can get. But someone like a singer on a stage and who might be interacting with a crowd or anything like that nature can have their in-ears, inserted and in use, but also have those ambient plugs opened and be able to hear what's going on the stage. So kind of a cool feature that sometimes customers are like, what is that? Or what is, how does that work? So um, yeah, that's the ambient feature. Um, and that kind of segues into hearing protection. And that's something I'm really passionate about with, my role here in Ultimate Ears. And it's part of my story and how I ended up getting these products before I even worked here was I was having tinnitus and I do have tinnitus. And um, the noise and loud SPLs of many years of performing and practicing and all that really did a toll and took a toll on my ears. And, I have to sleep with the sound machine every night now and um, have like a constant ring that just, it doesn't really go away. So I'm a huge advocate for UE, but also for the reason that these do give hearing protection outside of just the great sonic output that they perform with. So, um, I'll just say that like an average concert that you go to is going to be anywhere from like 90 to 125 decibels. And, I've heard it's around 80 decibels and louder that hearing damage can start. So obviously, if you're at, one of those metal concerts or anything like that, it's probably around the 120 decibel mark. So you're already just clearly damaging your ears. And even if you're a performer doing that and you're performing, in a metal band, you're probably in that, 110, 130 decibel area. And if you have our product, if you're at that 120, 110 mark, if you have our product in your ears, you're already cutting it by about 26 decibels. So it's not going to fully protect, but at the same time, it's going to preserve your hearing for the long term, like it has for me. When I came and got my first set about 13 years ago, I started wearing them and I haven't really stopped. Doesn't matter if I'm practicing, performing, recording, anything. I always have these in ears with me just for the hearing protection. And for sure, my tinnitus has pretty much just paused and just stayed level since then. So it's kind of a cool story just to see like, yeah, this is a great product that will really help you in performance, but hearing protection and having that is also part of that. So it's kind of a best of both worlds. Like you get all those harsh, loud cymbals or loud noises kind of reduced in your ear, almost like when you stick your fingers in your ears. But then you can have the control of like, oh, I want to be able to hear the violin that's 50 feet away from me. It's being mic'd up, and I can control that and have it in my ear. So that's kind of a big reason why we really try and educate students and artists around the world as on our product is just the overall preservation and what these can do for the long term of your life with these. So
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's why events like this are so important. Why education is so important because, it almost seems like an oxymoron using in-ear headphones essentially for hearing protection, and it doesn't really make sense because headphones get such a bad rap with regard to hearing loss over time. Everybody thinks every teenager is going to experience hearing loss because of their constant use of AirPods and that sort of thing, and maybe they're right. But in this particular case, if you can isolate the sounds outside of your head, essentially, and block those out, you don't have to have the audio as loud to be able to work efficiently. So if you can keep it at around 85 dB, you can work at those levels for 16 hours before suffering permanent hearing damage. But
totally.
it reduces drastically as you go up. So if you're forced to work at like 90 dB, because you don't have sound isolation. You can only work for 8 hours before suffering permanent hearing damage. And then, obviously, if you go up to 100, you're talking about, a matter of a couple of hours or less. And at 120, forget about it. If you're not wearing any hearing protection at all, as you know, it's a matter of minutes, if not instantaneously. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's fascinating.
for sure. Yeah, and it's interesting, like, doing any kind of the production work that I've done on the side as well too. Just being able to have the amount of reduction and the accuracy from these monitors, I find I can work for longer periods because I have the sound level down, but I could still hear, maybe it's a string part I've recorded or whatever, and it's something that I'd probably have to turn some monitors up on just to hear. But because these are right in my head, you can almost turn down to like the 50, 60 dB level and you can totally hear everything you need. So really cool.
Awesome.
So um yeah, that's pretty much everything I had, but I'd love to, if there's questions that you have or anything you want to discuss or anything that we want to hit on, I would be happy to go through that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a pretty comprehensive presentation. Kind of really gave me a lot to go on as far as what the company's about, the products you offer. So that's great. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the process for getting fitted
Mhm.
for the right size for your ears, and then what is the process for once you get the in ears made and you get them shipped to you and you try them out and they're not quite right. Now that you've got them custom made, can you send them back and get new ones, or how does that work as well?
Yeah, so I'll start with just the, beginning stages of, manufacturing and production. When you are, first becoming a customer and artist with us, first stage is just to go to an audiologist ear doctor. So that's, they're in any city, pretty much nationally and internationally. There's an audiologist ear doctor around the corner. We usually try and have the customer take a PDF document with them to this ear doctor that has all of our, recommendations as far as the material that's used. But basically, you just go and they will shoot some silicone impression material into your ear that will cure after about 5 minutes. And once you have your complete set of impressions, you just mail them to our office in Irvine. That's where we will scan them into our system with a 3D scanner. So then they're saved as like a specific file, and then that's how we start the manufacturing production stages. As far as when you receive the in-ears, let's say you buy some in-ears, you go to the ear doctor and you get the casts made and you ship them to us. Usually takes about 8 to 10 business days to manufacture the product. After that 10-day, we'll ship them to you. And let's say you receive them and it's not fitting well, or you have a pain in the top part of your ear, or they look kind of big and my ears are a lot smaller because we get those questions from time to time. We have different services and fit adjustment techniques that we can do and offer to the customer. So if they feel like it's comfortable, but maybe if you just shaved off a little bit, we have the techniques and tools available in our Irvine office to where if you ship them back to us, we would use some specific tools and per the artist or customer, your instruction, like, yeah, it just feels like it's sore on the bottom part of my ear.
Mm.
Then we can kind of take that note and make the altercations to the in-ear monitor. if by chance there's a case where, we do that whole service for the customer, ship it back again, and they're still like, yeah, it just doesn't feel right, then, we kind of weigh the situation. Do we want to try and do a remake and have you maybe go get another set of ear impressions made? We'll have the first ones already in hand in Irvine. We can kind of compare apples to apples and see like, what's going on with this ear anatomy, because every ear shape is different, and that's kind of the art form in how we manufacture these is, this person's got really small ears. How are we going to do this? And that's how our technicians kind of take each case. And then there's obviously the bigger ear, which is a little bit easier because you can fit as many drivers in there as possible. But yeah, we really stand by our product and our customer service, and are always there and standing by that. So, we always are willing and able to work with the customer to ensure that they are comfortable. Because I know when I first bought mine, it was probably like 5 days or even longer, about a week or so, that they were pretty sore. I was wearing them for long periods of time, and I was just like, I'm not sure. But then after about 2 weeks, all pain was gone, and I was taking flights across the country and doing a lot of hours of performances, and had them in. And still to this day, I have those in-ear monitors, and they work great. So,
I,
yeah.